and also joined by, I don't know, what's your title today, AJ?
What did we come up with last
Tired.
time? Director of the Church Jams Now Peanut Gallery.
Love it.
Sure, we'll go with that. AJ Simmons, how are you doing, AJ?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right.
Cool. Um, Today we are going to talk about another one of my favorite albums, as we've been doing. Um, this is Behold by My Epic. It was released in 2013 on Face Down Records. Um,
It was their first one with Face Down, right?
no, it was actually their third
Oh,
on Face Down.
oh,
Yeah.
it was their third on Face Down. Okay, well,
Hmm.
I read wrong. Look at me trying to. This is why I don't do research on any
I was gonna say,
shows.
wow.
I think their first one may have technically been on Dreamt Records, which was like a subsidiary of Face
Right,
Down.
that's what I thought. Yeah, yeah.
But
Okay.
I feel like Yet was on Face Down, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was Dreamt. Either way, they were both associated with Face Down. So you may be right, and we may both be right in that in some aspect. Um,
Wait, yes. Okay, I Am Undone and Yet we're both under Dreamt. And
okay,
Behold was the first on Face Down. Okay.
okay,
I'm not completely stupid.
all right. I about forgot about Dreamt. It was pretty short lived, I think. But yeah,
Yeah.
Kylan was right.
Coming
Um,
in with the research.
the band at the time, they've had many rotating members at the time. Jeremiah Austin was on bass. Jesse Stone was on drums. Tanner Morita was on guitar. And Aaron Stone was guitar and vocals. Aaron and Jesse brothers. Tanner Morita came from the band A Hope for Home. Um, this album was produced by the legendary Matt Goldman. Um,
That's why the drums sound so good.
yes, I agree.
I actually have a note on that. Yeah, the drums sound really great on this album.
Friggin' Matt
He
Goldman
is,
knows
yeah,
knows how to do drums.
he does. He's great. So Kylan, you mentioned you don't really have much history with My Epic except for just hearing about them here and there.
Yeah, yeah, we were talking about this before we started recording, but um, excuse me. Yeah, My Epic was always a band. Oh my God, I don't know what's happening. I've still got this like long COVID cough. I can't get rid of
Mm,
it.
oh man,
Um, yeah, My Epic was a band that I've always been like for the past 10 years or so, I've been aware of them by name only. Like I did know that they came out with a new record this year, and they just signed to Tooth and Nail. I think they've gone on a lot of tours with a lot of bands that I really like, but I literally have never listened to a My Epic song until I did my listen through for this episode.
interesting. All right, well, looking forward to your thoughts. AJ, what's your history with My Epic?
I think you suggested this album to me like 6 months to a year ago, and I
Okay.
listened to it, and then with my brain, that's like a lifetime ago. So I didn't really remember listening to it. And I
Okay.
think I might have conflated them with, is it No Devotion maybe? That
Okay.
is another
Yeah.
band that you like.
Yep.
I maybe conflated them with, because I was like, didn't I put a My Epic song on a mix for my wife? And then went looked and it was No Devotion. So
Ah. Okay. Yeah.
but yeah, so I listened to this album, let's go with 9 months ago, 6 months to a year ago.
So you
And
may as well have been this may
exactly, yeah, like if
as
I
well have
listen
been
to
a
an
first
album,
listen.
yeah, if I listen to an album more than like a month or two ago, this is basically a first listen.
Fair. Yeah. I know what you mean. Um, okay. My history with My Epic. I started listening to them around the time that first release came out. I'm Undone on Dream Records. They were a semi-successful independent band before that, I think, but I didn't get on board until that. And been listening to everything they've released since then. Um, this is my favorite album by them. And we'll touch on why as we go through each song. My rating scale will be a 5-star scale and also 0.0 to 10.0
For sure.
subscale, I guess we'll say.
For sure.
Uh, which I talked a little bit about that in the last couple episodes, I think. So if you're interested in that, check
Yeah.
those out. AJ, what's your scale going to be?
Sticking with the 0 through 3.
All right, 0 through 3.
From not for me to you gotta listen to this. I think
All
is
right,
the range of that scale.
there we go. All right, Kylan, you're sticking with the 5-star scale.
Yep, 1 through 5, baby.
All
Keeping it
right,
classic.
awesome. So I wanted to. I was sent a text about this. I kind of wanted to start trying to predict your all's ratings.
Oh yeah.
uh, okay. So my predictions. I'm predicting a 2 on the album for AJ and a 3.75 for Kylan.
Ooh. Okay.
So those are my
Interesting prediction.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my predictions.
I
Y'all
like
got
that.
anything else before we get into the first track?
Yeah, just briefly. Okay, so like I said, this is my first introduction to My Epic. And I was texting Josh Olson about it because My Epic is like that's like a band that he really loves too. And I was texting him about it today, and I had the realization. I think what I told him was my one sentence review of the band My Epic is My Epic seems to be the only band that asks the question, what if we took the epic last track of every metalcore album from the 2000s and just made that our whole thing? Because that's what this all feels like. Like everything from like Under Oath to Haste the Day to like, it's like all of those bands have like their last track is always like a slower, more
Yeah,
clean vocal, like 7-minute thing. And they're like, let's
right.
just do that for a whole album.
Yeah, that's that's a pretty good take. I've not thought about that, but you're right.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of Josh Olson, I was going to read this at the end, but he's a Patreon subscriber, and I ask all the Patreon subscribers to send me a review of the album that we're going to cover, and I'll read it. So Josh sent in a review. He says, "I listened to this record a ton when it came out, and maybe burnt myself out on it slightly. I think I was trying to listen to a new Thrice record vicariously through it. Still, Behold feels sacred in its approach, purpose, and execution. The documentary on making of it is really good too. My favorite song is Zion." So, shout out to Josh. Thanks, Josh,
Shout out to
for sending
Josh.
that in.
I did know that Zion was his favorite song, and I know also that Arrive is his second favorite song.
Interesting. Zion was my first favorite song on this album. This is one that's had several. AJ, anything you wanted to add before we go to track 1?
Well, we were like texting in the chat, and my initial like listen through on this was like, oh, these vocals really sound like Copeland. And I think I still stand by like their melodies do, but I had the thought yesterday morning listening to this that I think actually the vocals are Lydia, like remind me of Lydia's singer more than Copeland's,
Um,
Yeah,
right? Like, but I had it right, that crindy, like
yeah,
for sure, for
like
sure.
spacey kind of sound.
Well,
yeah.
I have, and maybe I'll save this for later on, but I have Aaron Marsh from Copeland, and I have two other vocalists that it reminds me of as well.
Yeah,
So,
I had Lydia's frontman. I'm blanking on his name right now, and I should know it because he's from like 30 minutes from where I
Can't
grew up. And
remember his name.
Manchester Orchestra.
well, that was another one of mine. So I might
Yeah,
as well get my
okay.
last
I
one.
don't feel crazy then.
Then my last one is oh my gosh, why can't I remember his name? Uh, Anthony Green from
Oh,
Circus
Circus
Survive.
Survive.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah,
then
definitely.
yeah. So it's all a vocalist, unless the lead singer of Lydia doesn't have an A name. That'd be great if he did, though.
I can't remember what his name is. Um, all right. Well, let's go to track 1, Arise. Um, AJ, what are your thoughts on the first track?
This is a solid like intro track, right? Like
Yeah.
kind of eases you into the like sonic world that they're creating with their music.
Mhm.
I don't think it's their best track on the album. I don't necessarily think it's the worst track. It's just kind of a solid example of it. I have it as a 2 out of 3.
Cool. Kylan, what do you think?
Um, I think it's too long for an intro track.
Okay.
I think it's got that really, really, really long outro. I do agree it kind of gets you in the zone. I like it starts, it starts really light with this piano and this cool like triplet kind of synth thing. But then the pads at the end, I'm just like, okay, like you could cut this by like a minute on an already pretty long record. You guys know how I feel about length of song and record. Um, but yeah, I did think it did a good job of like getting you prepared for like what you're in for. So I gave this one a 3 out of 5.
Okay. Yeah, off the bat, makes it pretty clear that this album's going to have a worshipful element. That
Mhm.
the Behold is talking about beholding God. I would think. When the Matt Goldman drums come in at 121, it just sounds so great.
Mhm.
Massive and heavy in a way that really I've only been able to hear Matt Goldman create.
For sure.
Um, it's a 5 star 9.8 for me.
Nice.
Um, yeah, I don't think of it as an intro, even though it kind of is. I mean, I just think of it as the first track. Um, but I can see where if you're thinking of it as an intro, that it's kind of it could be seen as being too
Well,
long.
lyrically, there's not a whole lot to it. It's like a
Yeah,
big instrumental jam, which like this literally does feel like it would be the last track on like a metalcore record. You're like, oh,
yeah,
they're starting with this. Okay, all right, this is the vibe.
yeah. Uh, um, all right, that's all I got on that one. Track two, Hail. This was the first single for the
Okay, that
album.
makes sense.
What do you think of this one, Kylan?
Um, I really like it. Um, the drums are just so good.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like the drums feel very thrice to me.
Yeah.
The guitar feels very like um I get a little like Acidy's Burn, kind of like Cody
Mm,
Bonnet
yeah,
guitar like lead lines and stuff, like where it sounds
yeah,
kind of heavy, but it's also kind of jangly.
yeah.
Um and then his
At,
voice, oh go ahead.
I was going to say at the time they listed Acidy's Burn as one of their influences on their Facebook page. I
That makes
remember
sense.
seeing that. Yeah, sorry.
That makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Um yeah, this vocal part that we're listening to right here at about like a minute in uh feels very Anthony Green to me, like very like Circa Survive.
Mm-hmm.
But oh man,
Yeah.
this Tom groove is just so good. It's just a little too long, but I would still give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay. AJ.
I think this is kind of like the shift in the gear, right? Like, this is a solid track too.
Yep.
The lyrics are beautiful. They're emotionally delivered. I really dig the emotional change or the musical change, I should say, at like 145, kind of where it cranks
Mm-hmm.
up even more. Yeah, the drums come through really clear. I get that this is a single because in some ways I think this is the thesis track of the album,
Yeah.
and I think it does a lot of the things that I like throughout the album really, really well in one song.
Mm.
So I think that this is, I'm gonna say right now, contender for one of my favorite songs. I
Ooh.
genuinely,
Okay.
before we jumped on, it was this and another one we'll get to that I was listening to one more time, and I was like, I don't know, we're gonna do it live
Okay.
when I decided. But no, I dig this track a lot.
Okay.
It's
Um,
good.
yeah,
Would you give it a three?
2.75 out of 3.
2.75. All right.
Hey, can I change mine to a 4.5?
Yeah,
4.5?
sure.
You're welcome. That
Because
can that
no,
Yep.
I'm listening to it. I'm like, because we're listening to it as we're talking. I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's such a long album. I forget some of these early songs by
Yeah.
the time I'm done with it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
weird.
fair. For some reason, this song didn't really hit as much for me as the single, but hearing it in the context of the album, it hit more for me. I do recall
Yeah.
that.
That is one thing for as much as I complained about like the really long outro of track one, I
Yeah.
think, you know, to an extent, if you have that context, it makes this like hit so much more.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. Yeah, like y'all, I love the tribal drums at the
Hmm.
start of the song, and those brief guitar strikes during the first verse.
Hmm.
The second the riff during the second verse reminds me a lot of Deftones, who I know was, or
Oh
during the
yeah.
second verse reminds me a lot of Deftones, who I know they were also very influenced by. Um,
Well,
I
who
love
One of
the
my
wasn't? If
comments
you're
is that
doing
this is
like
Deftones
heavy guitar
Christian. Yeah.
music
yeah, yeah,
in any time, like after in the 2000s and beyond, like you have to list Deftones as an
for sure,
influence.
definitely for sure. Uh, I I think Aaron is a great lyricist, one of the best at in explicitly Christian songs. I think.
Hmm.
I love the lyric in this one. All things are just words you choose to speak. Um, and I like that they incorporate the old worship song "Majesty" here
Yeah.
in the bridge. I think it was the '80s, like late '80s worship song, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a 5 star for me, 9.7, which is a solid 5 star.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, let's go to track 3, "Curse." AJ, what did you think about this one?
I like that musically. It lowers the energy a bit after Hail in the beginning, right?
Right.
Before raising
Mm-hmm.
it back up. I like that transition, right? That
Yeah.
Hail is a little heavier, this comes in softer, and then builds back up. I think this has some really beautiful lyrics, right? Like, always thought that I would have fought. Had I been alive, I would have stayed to the end, wept at your feet, and died by your side. Like that also feels very Love Drug almost type
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
lyric, right? But one of the comments I have throughout, and you kind of talked about it, I briefly mentioned before, is like the lyrics throughout this are so beautiful. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
incredible. I feel very similar to this that I did about the Falling Up album that
Mm-hmm.
we did,
Yeah.
right? Like it is very poetic, very beautiful, and a comment that I have on so many of the tracks of like, yep, about God, but man, this would fit on like a mix for my wife.
Yeah.
Right. There's musicians that sometimes have talked about like best worship songs also can double for really great love songs. And I
Yeah.
Right.
think that they do that incredibly well throughout the album. I think this is a 2.5 out of 3 for me.
Cool.
Nice.
Kylan?
Um, yeah. So I don't usually pay a lot of attention to lyrics. There are a couple moments on this record that I like really locked in, and really enjoyed. Some of it to me felt like a little too worshipy for me, like a little too kind of repetitive. Um, but he, I don't know, as a singer, I really believe his performance throughout all of this.
Mhm.
And that like really carries a lot of this record for me. Um, I didn't love I don't know. I think the intro to this song felt a little too Hillsongy for me. That with the dotted eighth delay,
Mm-hmm.
like like U2 Coldplay Hillsongy kind of thing,
Yeah, I
which
get
turned me
that.
off a little bit. But I mean, it's still like okay. So like what once again like everything's still like really hitting for me on this record. So I put this at a 3.5.
Okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying about it sounding a little bit to like the Hill song and things, but I, I think the star of maybe the whole album is Matt Goldman's production. As I keep mentioning,
For sure.
everything just
For sure.
sounds so good. Even this one, I think the chorus is one of the weakest on the album to me.
Yeah.
The lyrics are incredible, which would be also the star of this. But it's still, despite being one of my least favorite choruses, it's still a 4.5 star, 9.4. I do think maybe what you were hinting at, the uh the guitars in the beginning. Maybe what kind of keeps us from being a 5 star for me. I like it, but maybe it is just too much like the thing that this is album is maybe meant to be the alternative to. I think.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
That tracks. I like that.
Right. Track 4, Confession. Kylan, what do you think about this one?
Okay, we're on our third song that's longer than 5 minutes. Um, but okay, so I listened to this album a couple times, and what I like about it is it does a really good job of uh like for an album like this, like a really sort of like kind of heavy, um really kind of like heady record. Um it does a really good job of letting you engage with it on different levels, if that makes sense. Like,
Hmm.
so I like, because I had one listen where I literally just like sat down and didn't do anything else and just listened to it. And I had a listen where I'm like chasing after my kid or doing the dishes and things like that,
Right.
and it's still, I was able to like get things done around my house while having it in the background and being engaged in that way. Like,
Mm.
it does have this sort of like, I think because that production is so big and these songs are so long, like, uh, you are able to kind of zone out a little bit
Hmm.
in places and kind of ebb and flow with your engagement with it,
Right.
which I genuinely really enjoy about a
Same.
record, where it's not just all like balls to the wall or
Yeah.
only just slow jams. Like, things change enough that it's like it scratches my ADHD brain in the
Right.
right way to be able
Hmm.
to like do other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do really like this song. Um, it feels a little too long again for me, but I'd still put this at a 4.
Cool. AJ.
So this is solid tune. It again, they kind of starts to find its groove, and I think you mentioned this on the Falling Up record, Kylan, that like I have to sometimes like go back and look at the track titles because they all somewhat bleed together at
Right,
times. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It gets to your point that you kind of can engage in it in two different ways. Like I can be locked in on this, or I can go about my life
right,
on this. I again think when you do lock in and you pay attention to the lyrics, they're beautiful. Again, I really love the line, and in the end, I'll die as a thief. My greatest joy that you'll hang here with me. Like we all know what that's. I guess the
right.
Mhm.
three of us are know
Yeah.
what that's referencing, right?
Yeah.
And that's a really again poetic
Hmm.
expression that I
Mm,
dig. So I'm gonna go 2.25 out of
All
3.
right.
nice.
Yeah. The thing that struck me while listening to this song this time is just that how rare it is to find like Christian music in this genre that doesn't have like a degree of cynicism to it or um some kind of challenging of
Right.
belief.
So that I mean that was the thing that struck me a lot too. Because like his voice did a lot of times sound like Andy Hull from
Hmm.
Manchester Orchestra, but
Right.
it's like if they're like two sides of a coin where like Andy Hull is like the deconstructionist
Yeah.
version, and Aaron Stone, right, is his
Yeah.
name, is like
Yeah.
the reconstructionist version of the say, like they're
Yeah.
they're
Yeah,
they're
I get
kind
it.
of
Yeah.
talking about really similar things and they sound similar, but yeah, there's the cynical, like deconstruction version of it, and then there's this like my epic version of it that's like all in.
I used to have that same thought, but it on the other side of the coin was Cody Bonnet for me.
Oh
That
yeah, 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 for
especially
sure.
like the Come Now Sleep era. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that exact thing I used to think back when I first started listening a lot to them. Um,
Right.
But yeah, this is a 5 star, 9.7 for me.
Nice.
Were you about to say something, AJ?
I was just gonna say, I think it'd be a lot of fun to have some conversations with this guy about philosophy, theology, life views. I think it'd be really interesting.
Oh, for sure.
He has I I don't want to like put words in his mouth, but he has changed his beliefs on a lot of things since this album. I know just from listening to interviews and things. Their lyrics do now have a little bit of like questioning and things like that in them, which I'm not against. It was just so refreshing that there was a band like this that didn't have a lot of that because
Right.
there are so many that do, and I appreciate both. But now I feel like there's not a bit like a post-hardcore band like this that just has like just worshipful
Yeah, yeah,
lyrics.
for sure.
But you know I don't want to keep any band in any kind of box though, so I'm totally fine with them moving on to other things.
Yeah.
Track 5, Royal. AJ, what do you think about this one?
So I think this kind of immediately sounds different than anything else on the album, right? So far anyway. Right? Like
Yeah.
that heavy intro is like this great way to finish off the first half of the album. If you want to view albums kind of as into A side and B side, like this is a solid way to wrap up A side, or this is a way of again viewing this almost like I did the Falling Up album. This is a great start to Act Two of the
Mm.
story. Right, it feels sort of like Smashing Pumpkins, like there's
Mhm.
Zeitgeist there when they
Yeah, yeah.
reunited and they were a little heavy but still
Yeah.
spacey at the same time.
Hmm.
The drums are very Jimmy Chamberlain like in that regard.
Mm.
Once again, beautiful lyrics that emote well. I in particular, I like I Come Alive Again Here in Your Light. Again, that is something that like in the context of this, we know what he's talking about, but also a hell of a line that somebody could write about their spouse.
Yeah.
True.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I dig this a lot. I have this. I'm gonna go with a 2.5.
Okay. Kylan.
Um, yeah, I like that this starts like really heavy. And then we just like okay, this is like at least on this album, I obviously can't speak to the rest of their discography, but they're like a really groovy band. It's
Mhm.
almost like
Like a
a
jam band at times, right?
Yeah.
yeah, but like and then almost like a little like sludgy,
Hmm.
like a kind of like sludge metal kind of
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
going on where it's like it's
Post
really
rock.
like down tempo but just like like they're just like these really heavy grooves.
Yeah.
There's a
Uh
song later on that gets like really grungy, like where it's like this is
yeah.
like a grunge guitar.
Hmm.
And
But
this is some
then
weirdly
you
country.
mix it with like his voice is so pretty.
Yes, it is. It's
And I'm
really
just like this
incredible.
is like yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
I put this one at a 4 as well. I was just kind of like locked in at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like you're just like, okay, I get what this is.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can just like vibe out to this.
Right. Yeah, I do think this is a more vibey track. Another Deftones heavy riff. I
Hmm.
think, like you said,
Oh,
sludgy.
100%.
Yeah, I can definitely hear like a maybe they were listening to ISIS or something
Yeah,
around this
for
time.
sure, for sure.
Uh, it's probably my least favorite song on the album. Um, full song, I'll say. My least
Okay.
favorite full song on the album. Um, but it's still good. Just a great, like, groovy, heavy, vibey track. There's not as many elements that stick out to me on this song as a lot of the others. But still a 4 star, 8.9 for me. Um, so yeah, let's go to track 6, Approach. Kylan, what do you think about this one?
Um, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it does feel like like the halfway point in the record.
Yeah.
Um, I like this has real uh like altar call vibes to me, just like musically. Like it's just like lots of pads and, piano keys kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, it reminds me a lot of like well, so this is obviously on my mind, but a lot of the like Kevin Max kind of like spoken word poem kind of
Yeah.
things, but
Yeah.
he sings it, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like production wise, uh like it's okay. Like I could take it or leave it. Um, so I put this at a 3.5.
Okay. AJ.
So I think that this is my least favorite track
Okay.
on the album.
Hmm.
Um, like I get that if you're kicking off like again the second half of the album, you want to do something different or whatever, but I and so if you view in that regard, like, well, that's how they introduced the A side. So this is the A side version for the B side.
Right.
Hmm.
But it just kind of, and it's not bad. Don't get me wrong. It just is my least favorite on an album full of a lot of stuff that I like. Is a
Yeah,
good way to put it. I
that's
think
fair.
the synths at the beginning like reminded me of I think Eric, you probably listened to it, I don't know about Kylan, but lights like
Hmm.
the early lights, the synths at the
Yeah.
beginning before she kind of got really like dubsteppy and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
No, I can hear that. Yeah.
And then like the I actually dug sort of like the worshipy guitars in the background at the beginning. So it's a good transition track, but that's sort of what it feels like is it's like this filler transition to separate, I think, oh let me scroll up here. Royal from the next track. And
Hmm.
Hmm.
have a breather. It's sort of I've talked about this before of like TV shows after something dramatic happening, getting the screen as close to the black that triggers trailer or triggers commercials as possible, but not quite to that
Yeah.
Right,
to
right.
give people a moment to breathe. That's
Yeah.
sort of what this feels is like getting as close to possible as that shade of black that triggers like, oh, it's time for a
Right.
commercial.
Hmm.
Um, so that there's a moment to breathe between Royal and
That's a good
Liturgy.
observation. Yeah, that's a good observation. What
Uh,
score do you give it?
2 out of 5. Or 2 out of 3. Sorry, 2 out of 3.
Okay.
Forgot my own scale for a second.
Whoa, whoa, going off the rails now.
2 out of 3.
um, I I think this is a beautiful song lyrically, and musically. I think this is what Tanner Merida was brought into the band for. He's kind of like he's I think the vibe guy.
Mm,
He from everything I hear, like all the little things going in the background to make it sound pretty and everything. Like their previous album yet did not have very much of that. And I think they brought him in to kind of expand, I guess, the atmosphere and kind of nuance of the songs. And I think you know I think he showcases that
yeah.
quite a bit here. It's a 5 star for me, 9.7.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think it's beautiful. Um, let's go track 7, liturgy or liturgy, depending on who you ask, I guess. Um, Kylan, what do you think about this one?
Uh, I just, man, I just want to live in this drum sound forever and ever. Amen.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
um, yeah, this is a 4.5 for me.
awesome. All
Um,
right.
yeah, no, I think it's great. It's interesting. I do feel like the second half of this album, so the first half, like, okay, they do such a good job of sequencing on this album, uh, to the point that like it does feel kind of like a specific kind of church service, which is kind of what I think I rubbed against a little bit on my listen through this. But the second half feels a little more like overall feels a little more kind of personal. Like side A feels like very worshipful, but like kind of general. And I feel like at this point in the record, we're starting to like maybe hear a little bit more like personal experience
Yeah.
um, in specifically like what he's talking about.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I really dug it. Those guitar lines, those slide downs, those doo, like feel real
Mhm.
Yeah.
jazzy. Oh, I
Yeah.
love it.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, I
love
love
it.
those. Yeah. AJ?
Did we get a score from Kylan?
Yes, he gave it a 4.5.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yeah.
Right, it's good.
Okay. So I actually had a similar observation about the album that you just kind of talked about. I think the first half of the album sounds like a Thrice album, and then the second half of the album sounds like a Copeland album,
Yep.
Yeah, that's fair.
right? And that's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
exactly.
This is the
Right.
baby of Thrice and Copeland. Like
Right.
that's those are two very great bands.
Yeah.
But there is a shift that happens, and that's why I kind of do talk about the previous track is like that shift.
Hmm.
I really love this song. It's obviously about God, but again, with so much stuff that they have, it's written in a way that wouldn't be out of place on a mix for my
Hmm.
wife. The lyric, as hard as I've tried to write, to shuffle the notes and structure the lines are never as lovely as they should be. For all of my singing, I never sung a melody worthy or perfect enough for you. Right? Like it's this incredibly well done song about like how art comes from something or someone that it doesn't necessarily come from you. I think
Yeah.
anybody
Yeah.
that's ever created art at times you're like where
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
where and it sounds like super pretentious to folks that like don't do that.
Right.
Somebody in my life is reading through my second book in preparation for that coming out, and she's like, "Where? Like, where is this coming from?" And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. I don't know, it just
That's
happens.
great.
I'm
It
just a
just
conduit.
right. That's what this sort of feels like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But in a
yeah.
way that's like not as snarky or pretentious.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
it's not some art school kid,
Yeah.
right? And like, it's a way like if the singer of the band had said that you would believe it. Like there's an earnestness to
Yeah.
that that's not like, oh, you're not trying to commodify
Right.
being like pretentious and cool and whatever. Like
Hmm.
it does come sometimes like you get in this flow is like the word I've seen to describe it, where
Yeah.
you're like, that was not a cognizant thought there that resulted in what I just
Right.
Yeah.
created.
Yeah.
And that's really when some of the most beautiful stuff, because then you have to sit back and be like,
Yeah.
what is this?
What is yeah, yeah. Dude,
Right.
yeah.
And so this is like
Yeah.
such a cool song about that, because
Yeah.
I think often the people that do talk about some of that, it comes off as disingenuous and performative. And so then you
Mhm.
don't see people that I think would say something like that because they're like, this might come off as like fake.
Right.
And I'm not gonna name names on ones that would come off as fake, but there's certainly some that I can think of that would say something like this, and I would be like, nonsense, art school dropout.
Yep. Yep.
But on this track, you're like, yeah, this
Yeah.
Yeah.
hits.
Well,
So,
to go back to the Copeland of it all, my last note on it is like, okay, what if it like this song to me feels like what if they did like Ixora
hmm
era Copeland production,
hmm
but Aaron sang melodies like he did on Beneath the Medicine Tree.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you mix that like
Yeah.
that later era Copeland with that like early kind of emo Copeland.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About a track where like God is a muse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is a 2.75. And I think the more I talk about this, I think this is the obvious answer that this is my favorite track on
Is
the
your
album.
of course
Very
it's
cool.
got to be.
Right. Like so, Hail is really good musically, I think. But I think that this combines other things together. And so
No,
yeah,
but
often like
it
go
was
ahead.
like this point in the record, I'm like, okay, I'm like really locked in because I do feel
Yes.
like he's getting more personal,
hmm
and I'm
Yeah.
like really here for that.
Yeah. It's very meta writing a song
Uh-huh.
about writing songs. Um,
Yeah.
a topic I don't feel like is explored as much as maybe it should be. Like this is kind of like what you do, but you don't
For
really
sure.
sing songs about singing
Oh
songs
man,
too much.
remind me once we stop recording. There's a song uh, about writing songs that's very explicitly about that I really love that I'm gonna share with y'all.
Okay, cool.
Just remind me.
Okay.
Like this may be hitting too hard for me because I actually talking about book 2. And not even book 3, book 4 has a section where somebody's talking about this. Like
I'm so mad at you. You're
writes this
just
letter
writing
to
too
a
many
person
books.
about how they're everything that comes out of them is for that person.
That's so cool.
And so I think that this kind of hits because I genuinely just wrote this
Right.
like version of it from the perspective of a character. But that there's still lots I had that in mind for the ending, and I jumped to the ending and wrote that as part of the ending. So then that's why this
Nice.
is like hitting hard, maybe harder than normal. Like we
Yeah,
talked about
yeah.
this, right?
No, but
That like
yeah.
good record, bad day, good record, good day stuff. Like Kylan and I
Right.
have talked about this before of like whatever's going on in your life, sometimes a record hits or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, this may be 2 weeks ago would I have felt the same way
Yeah.
about this.
Right. Well, that's the
Um,
thing is like there's no way to uh engage with art objectively. You know what I mean? Like
right.
it literally is entirely subjective, and that's what I love about it.
Right.
Even
The
when
only thing you
I
can really
oh no, even when I flop something bad on Church James Now, it's like, well, it's just like you bring your whole entire self. Well, if you genuinely want to engage with art, right?
right.
This is a
Mhm.
totally separate conversation, but
Right, no, I agree. But yeah, so favorite track on the album.
Awesome.
nice,
It's a 5-star for me, 9.7.
sweet, yes.
Yeah, let's move to my favorite track on the album at this point.
Ooh,
Lament.
this is your favorite track, Eric?
It is currently my favorite track. All the ones that I've given 9.8s to have been my favorite
Uh-huh.
track at some point. So Arise and a couple more that are to come.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll go ahead and start on this one. I feel like it's so close to being a miss thematically for this album
Hmm.
because it starts off talking about self deletion.
It's dark. It's a
Yeah,
really dark song.
yeah, and it sounds dark, and I've been there, and I feel like it comes as close to capturing that feeling as it can.
For sure.
But I like how it kind of morphs into a song about understanding your place in the universe, and also that we, despite being such small blips in the universe, we matter so much to God. I think the melodies are gorgeous. The
Hmm.
choruses are awesome. One of my favorite lyrics: "The depths are not void; they resound with the truth that there's no peace to rest in till we find our place in you." I think that's beautifully said. So 5-star,
Yeah.
9.8 for me. Uh, Kylan, go ahead.
Eric, this is also my favorite song on this record.
Yes, awesome.
It well, it's so funny because on my first listen, I like it takes me a couple listens to really like lock into lyrics. And then I go and look at the lyrics and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I mean, of course, like the saddest song on the record is the one that I'm gonna say is my favorite." But okay, this is like okay, so much else about this record is like it's so jammy. Like
Mhm.
it reminds me a lot of like Explosions in the Sky.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like it's this like big sort of like there's a lot of space. This feels almost the most like traditional song.
Mhm.
Um, but man, I resonated with this song so hard.
Yeah.
This is okay. I need you to confirm for me because I literally don't remember. Have I what's the highest ranking I've given a song so far in this series?
Oh, have
No?
you
Do you
given
have
any
that
five?
offhand?
I do have all of your rankings here somewhere. Um, it would probably have been on the All the Day Holiday. I feel like you gave a few fives on All the Day Holidays
Okay.
album. Let me see if I can find that.
Gee, Kylan, are you giving this track a 5?
You gave
Guess what?
You gave 2 5s on Falling Up
Okay.
in the wood shop up in
Oh
houses.
yeah. Okay. Well, this is joining the pantheon of 5-star songs.
Okay.
This is
Awesome.
so good. I listen to this song more than any other song on this record.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's just it. I mean, it it does something that I really appreciate, like talking about this kind of stuff, like talking about like death and even like suicidal ideation and like things like this. Um, it does it in a way that feels very real, but it does it in the way that I appreciate the most, where it's like, you feel like you're at the bottom of a well. You're like in
Mhm.
this deep hole,
Mhm.
but you're looking up, right? And you see a light. Like,
Mhm.
there is this like inherent sort of hopefulness that comes out in this song,
Mhm.
that I just love. I love everything about this song.
Yeah,
It's maybe a perfect song.
it's pretty powerful. I did find the All the Day Holiday when you gave 3 5s on All the Day
Oh
Holiday
wow. All
and
right.
two on Falling Up, but that
All
might be
right.
all the
That
fives you've
tracks.
given.
I think so.
Um, AJ, what do you think about this one?
So this is my third favorite track
Okay,
on the album.
nice.
I really dig it. I really dig the intro and like the subtle like bass line that's in the background. One of the things I think I found on this and even on Falling Up more than some of the other albums that we've listened to is I'm having to bring up like timestamps more and being like, ooh, at this
Hmm.
time this thing happens, and at this
Yeah,
time this
Right.
thing happens. So
yeah.
like there's that shift at like the 30-second mark on this song. And then again, the shift at like the 2-minute mark where it shifts in the heavier that I
Mm-hmm.
really like.
Hmm.
I think this is a really thoughtful song to kind of what you guys have been talking about dealing with sadness, and self-deletion as the word that you used there.
apparently,
And like,
it's
go ahead.
apparently YouTube frowns on
Fair enough.
saying.
That's fine.
So I don't know. I
Yep,
don't
that's
know
fine.
if it. Yeah.
But like the sadness and lament that like um one would leave behind for their loved ones, and like you said, like this image, I think that's really beautiful imagery there, Kylan, of like sitting at the bottom of a well looking up and you see the light.
Mm-hmm.
um and so yeah, this is such a good track, and I think in a different headspace this might be my favorite track. Right, and so but yeah, this number 3 currently 2.5 out of 3 for me.
Cool. Yeah, like you said about the headspace, you do almost have to get in a different headspace than the rest of the album, like at the beginning of the song, and that's why I mentioned it almost being a miss thematically,
Right. Yeah,
but
yeah.
it does morph into something that fits. But yeah, for a brief minute, you gotta. It's like, oh, we're going here.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't
Yeah. You're
expect
just
it to
like,
go
oh
there.
man. Yeah.
Is it,
But man, I honestly, like, I so wish I had heard this record around 2013, because like I was dealing with a lot of stuff, and you know trying to figure out how to talk about a lot of this stuff within the context of, like growing up
Mhm.
in a religious context. And I
Mhm.
got so much pushback from everyone in my life that like didn't
Oh
have
wow.
language to
hmm
be able to talk about it. And then this song just like brought all that back, but like in a good way. It was like, oh my God, like these, like this is the way you like can talk about this. I
Mhm.
think this song is like it's a sleeper of a song. Like it's buried so far down in this record, but
Yeah.
I mean it's huge. It's a really 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 great song.
Yeah.
hmm
Uh, let's move to what was my first favorite song on this album, Zion, track number 9.
So this is Josh
Um,
Olson's favorite song.
Josh's
yep,
favorite song.
yep.
It's my
Um,
second favorite.
okay.
So,
Yeah. For a long time, it was my favorite, but over time, Lament has kind of overtaken it, but it's very. I think it's also like pretty close to a standard worship song, maybe more than
Hmm.
a lot of the other ones. But like the guitar and the melody, lyrics, everything
Yep.
is just like beautiful and
Sad Hill
perfect.
song.
Yeah, sad. Yeah, emo hill song. The guitar lines all through the song are just really
Yep.
gorgeous.
Yep.
And then at 506 has a beautiful crescendo. It's a 5 star 9.8 for me.
It's so long, but it is
It's
so
still your
good.
second favorite though. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'd give this a 4.5.
Okay.
That piano tone is so good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and
Um,
and this is also okay, so to get music nerd again
Yes, Music Man
on
yes,
y'all.
section.
please.
Let's do it.
This is the first song, so I think all the other songs have mostly been in 4/4 time. This is in a swing 6/8 groove.
Oh, okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't think we've had a full song on this record that's in 6/8. So,
Okay.
um, which I think is the perfect time to switch into a groove like this. Because the record is like kind of starting to wind down, and you need a different kind of vibe, and I think this
Yeah.
does that perfectly.
Yeah. I love it when you get music nerdy. Don't
Oh,
hesitate.
Yeah,
well,
Don't
yeah. I
don't
there,
don't
learned.
there's
I
hesitate
learned.
to
there's
do
So
that.
cool.
there's another song on this that I'm gonna get real music nerdy.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. Okay. AJ, what do you think about this one?
So I really dig this song, right? Because like it is long, second longest song on the album, but it's
Hmm.
like it evolves through it, right? Like there's a transition that occurs at like the 45-second part, that has like this instrumental jam that I dig. Then it transitions again at like the 2 minute 45 to where it's the same song and connected stuff like that, but it evolves enough that it keeps my attention. So I shockingly didn't have a problem with the length of this song. Like it
Yeah.
keeps my brain interested and engaged, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And this is another song about God that I can imagine being on an album for a spouse, right?
Hmm.
The lyric, "Only for you does my soul wait, do my bones ache." Like, whew,
Yeah.
that's incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
And so oh, I really dig this. I'm gonna go with the 2.5 out of 3.
Yeah, I think even like musically, it almost hits like a love song, and
It
I don't
does.
know how to explain
It
it, but it sounds
does.
like a love song.
I mean, again, like I think
it's
my
that
problem with
six
a
eight
lot of
groove, man.
Okay,
Most love songs are in 6/8.
there you
okay,
go. See, help. Yeah.
maybe.
But
Yep.
this doesn't feel hollow, right? You talk about this feeling like a worship song, and so
Right.
much modern worship songs are just noise. There is no heart in them. Come
Mhm.
at me,
Right.
bro, for those that disagree. 100%. They are just noise to take up space and try to manipulate people's emotions sonically. And so this feels like a genuine worship song, which is what,
Yeah.
again, love songs often are.
Right.
And so to quote, what is it? Switchfoot, right? Love song for a savior. This is kind of
Mhm.
what
Jars
this
of clay.
is, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like it is this worshipy song, but is done right, and it doesn't feel like it was like 10 people sitting around trying to overproduce something to make people feel noise.
Right.
Is their emotions, and so I dig it.
Awesome. Let's go to track 10, Selah. Kylan, what do you think about this one?
Um, I like this song a lot.
Okay.
This feels this feels the most Manchester orchestra to
Hmm.
me,
Yes,
especially like later Manchester,
100%.
where it's kind of like almost a little spooky.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of harmonies.
Mm-hmm. Like haunting
Um,
harmonies, though.
yeah, yeah. Um, I a lot of times on albums, especially this long, I would be kind of annoyed with like a half track like this.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I think between like the track before and the last track, like you need something kind of like this to kind of like reset
Hmm.
mentally a little bit. Um, and yeah, so I give this another 4 out of
Okay.
5.
Okay. AJ.
Um, I do
Oh,
wish there
sorry,
was
Kyle.
more stuff. I do wish there was maybe a little more stuff like this. Like I kind of wish what was the other approach? I wish approach was a little more like this.
Okay.
I could see that, yeah.
Okay. AJ.
So like musically, because what Kylan was talking about, like this is completely different than I think
Mm,
anything else on the album. I have the note hauntingly beautiful,
Mhm.
kind of the conversation we were
Yeah.
just having.
yeah.
You know, because of the background noise that kind of runs throughout. I think two of my listen throughs, I took my headphones off to like look around and figure out what was coming through. Like I
Right.
I thought my kids were knocking on like my office door. There was like
Yeah,
something crawling
Right.
around the attic, which is both good and like you don't want to give people necessarily a reason to take off their headphones if you're listening to you because I think I put them back on. But I thought that was just kind of different and felt very almost Dead Man's Bones, Ryan Gosling's like horror band a little bit, where they had
Yeah.
throughout that album they had like these weird sounds in the background that you're like, money, it makes you want to look around the room. That's why I'm doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like what
yeah.
is like something's around and it's like crawling and bothering. So it's cool. I really love when all the music drops out towards the end and the singer
Hmm.
just goes over and over again. I want to be a dead man. It's I think sticks with you,
Well,
tingly.
the cool thing about this track is I do feel like it honestly could work anywhere on this album.
Hmm.
Like it could be the opening
Yes.
track and it would be rad as
Oh,
hell.
that'd be an
It could be the
interesting
middle
opening.
track, it would be rad as hell. Like it could work anywhere and transition between all the songs like really well, which I think speaks to just how good it is.
It feels like they
Yeah.
recorded like nine of the tracks together and then came back and recorded this and Lament.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
that and the same recording session kind of makes sense to me,
Yeah.
Yeah,
in
for
my
sure.
Definitely.
opinion.
For sure.
And then like dropped those two in after.
Yeah. I it's probably my least favorite song on here, but that's because it's not a full song. But I do
Right.
like it. It's a still 4 star, 8.9. I'm perfectly fine with it being on the album, and I get why
Yeah,
it would need
like
to be.
it needs to be there.
Yeah.
Like the song on its own, like without the context of the rest of the album, I don't know if it stands
Right.
on its own, but
Yeah.
it does need to be there somewhere for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I
Yeah.
do appreciate in like the land of like 5 to 6 minute songs on here, they get in like 2 minutes, punch you in the gut, and then leave.
Right. Yeah,
So I
yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
appreciate that. As like my ADHD brain that at times can be like, okay, get done song, like move out. They come in and they're like, haha, emotional gut punch.
Right.
And then like the anime like twing look and then they
Yeah.
Yeah.
leave.
For sure.
um, a song that is not quick gut punch. Let's go to number 11, Arrive. Kylan, is this one too long for you?
Hey, guess what? This might be another 5 star song
Oh,
for
wow.
me.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and it kind of all boils down to so, okay, for one, I'm more forgiving of long songs if they're the last track on an album. It feels more intentional. And on an album full of long songs, okay, I'll give you 8 minutes for the last song. But they put so much into those 8 minutes. And okay, so some music theory for everybody.
Okay.
Um,
We
this
need to
and
have like a music playing in the background as like chime in like it's music, man.
yeah,
School
yeah,
time.
it's music theory corner with Kylan Savage. This entire song is in 7/4, which is weird as hell. Okay, so
It's like a love drug time,
so
right? Like,
kind of, yeah. So it's used a lot. Okay, so the best way to break it down is like most songs in Western music are in 4/4 time, right? So you have four beats per measure. So if you're clapping along and counting to a song, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then
Mhm.
you have songs that are in 6/8 or 3/4, which are 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Like a waltz is like a three
Mhm.
four time.
mhm.
So 7/4 time is where you have one measure of 4/4 and one measure of 3/4. You go
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so
Mhm.
it feels a little unexpected. And that's what I love about this song is that it keeps you on your toes because the entire thing is in 7/4, which is insane to do an 8 minute, like if you're not like Dream Theater or some like weird prog band, to do an entire 8 minute song in a non-traditional time signature. uh but what I think it accomplishes is that you can't fully like get into a groove with it. So there's an insane amount of musicianship that essentially leads to this constant feeling of anticipation.
Mhm.
Because the downbeat on the one is always happening like right before you expect it to. So it's the musical equivalent of like a like a joy buzzer, right? Like you're never quite able to get into the groove unless you're like physically counting it out. Unless you're
Mhm.
going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So every time that downbeat happens, you're just like, oh, that's a little bit earlier than I anticipated, and it makes it insanely dynamic.
Hmm.
I think this is a great song. This is like a 4.75. Like
Okay.
this is it's crazy. It's crazy that someone would do this. Like if you're
Awesome.
not a jazz band or a prog band, like it's insane that you would do this. So I fully respect that.
Awesome. AJ, what do you think about this one? Oh, actually, AJ, what did you give Selah?
Oh, did I not give a rating? 2.5 out of 3.
2.5. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. What did you think of Arrive?
So I texted you guys earlier in the week that this album sounds like what if answers the question of what if Copeland listened to prog rock, and it was after I finished listening to the like I think this is the last track I listened to before I text you guys this, and so like Kylan's observation there that this is like a prog rock track
Yeah.
makes sense. I may not know music theory and stuff like that, but I
Right, but
tracked it
but
that
but you picked up on
way.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so like this is the most like Copeland making a prog rock album
Mhm.
song. Also in like 8 minutes it shifts, I think, from like three almost different types of songs or genres of songs within that 8 minutes. Like the twangy country guitars at the beginning, like I
Yep.
genuinely wondered if that was pedal steel guitar,
Mm.
or if that was just like
Right.
slides. I don't you tell me, music man.
Yeah, no, I think it is just slide guitar. Um,
Okay.
but there's a way that you can play a slide guitar that mimics pedal steel.
Okay. All right. I didn't know it was one of the two. And then like it evolves in like this like grunge sound at like 2:30. This is what we talked about earlier, like this track
Yeah.
that has like these the like the chugga chugga type stuff of like the grunge music a little bit.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, and then we get like war drums, like at like the 3:15 or so mark, and it transitions again and becomes like almost like either a mute math track or like later falling up at their most mute mathy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's like some sweet, sweet bass that comes in as well. like, and you think the song is over at like the 4 minute mark, and then the
Yep.
drums kick back in, and
And they
then
come
slowly
back
other
in. Yeah.
instruments kick back in, and like this weird ethereal noises. This is an incredibly well produced track. And like almost becomes, I refer to like Falling Up as like Deus Vale's Wario. Like this almost is like a Deus Vale track towards that
Yeah.
like latter half of the song. But then it becomes like this post rock track towards like the
No,
last
I know.
minute or
It
two.
does
Like, and
Yeah.
so
all
many
of
things.
it makes
It does
complete sense that you're like, we started off at
maybe
like
too many
country
things, but it works.
Yeah.
but I think that
Yeah.
that's like it does absolutely work, and this is a good song. It's 2.5 out of 3 for me. Um, but I think that that's what kind of like it was both interesting to me and threw me a little bit of how to like classify this. I
Right.
wasn't really sure where to like throw this in at of like, is this manic enough that is and it's well done, or is this just like I think it was with this track that I was like, all right, prog rock Fish,
Yeah.
a little bit, right? And I can't stand Fish in like jam bands. I straight up just can't. Like I've been to punk concerts where bands are done with their entire set before a Fish song is done. And so at times, like my
Right.
brain wants to like rebel against something that and it's not even their fault. My brain just made that connection of being like, this is
Yeah.
like a Fish track. We don't like it. It's like, no, we do like it. I think
Right.
we do. It's super interesting. Brain's like, I don't know. You associate it with Fish, man. I do think that this might be the only track that I'm going to say goes too long on this album. I
Okay.
disagreed that any other track on this album is too long,
Okay.
but the last 45 seconds to a minute, I think is when I kind of was like, all right,
All
they're
right,
just
we're
being
done.
indulgent.
Let's
They're
wrap
just
it
being
up.
indulgent.
Let's wrap it up.
Well, especially at the end of like a really well done track that is like all gas like through the entire
Mhm.
time, in my opinion. Or sorry, album that's like that, and then gets to this, and it's like, all right, this is where I think you crossed the line into indulgent jam band. So if they had stopped at the 7 minute mark, maybe this would have been rated because I think it is super cool. Again, to start at like twangy guitars and end in like
Right.
post rock, you're like, and yet that makes sense for with what they did. So yeah, I think maybe if they cut like a minute off of it, I would be less. I don't even know if critical is the right word because I genuinely do like it, but my brain was like in full rebellion by the end. Every time
Yeah.
I listen to it,
That's fair.
5 out of 3
All
because
right.
again, I desperately wanted to like this track, and I think it is so good. The Civil War track in my mind, I think, like
That's
just
fair.
Makes sense.
couldn't decide if I liked it or hated it, and I was like, no, I think we like this. We like this.
Yeah, I think this is about like when you arrive in heaven, and I think like the way it builds anticipation is kind of like, you know, like how a lot of us think about the world, just waiting for that day. Um he says, all my hopes rest on the day when I see these tides realign. I'll keep my eyes on the horizon and my course set until then. Um, and then I think when it hits that like 5:15 mark where it gets like everything kind of uh comes together and gets loud and things, I think that's supposed to maybe symbolize the moment of arriving.
Mm.
But yeah, it's very post rocky, I think, and I don't know. I think it's great. It's a 9.8 5 star for me. Um, one of 4 tracks on this album that I gave a 9.8. So nothing else quite top 100 of all time, but there are several top 250
Yeah.
songs of all time for me on this one.
Nice.
Yeah. So AJ, what are your final thoughts on the album and your final rating?
I dig this album. It really does sound like this weird intersection between like Copeland, Lydia, Manchester Orchestra, and Thrice. And I guess Manchester Orchestra sort of sounds like the segue between Thrice
Yeah.
and the other two, but they kind of fit in here. A complaint I've had on other things we listened to recently is the drums have been too quiet. Like that was one of my complaints on Falling Up. The drums are not too quiet on here, and that it just appears to make sense. With the other works that the producer's been on, I think this is an incredibly well produced album.
Sure.
They're obviously talented musicians, and they have a really great lyricist that has such a beautiful way, a poetic way of writing, and then like it's an incredible voice that I think just works well. Um, I think that this is a 2.5 out of 3.
Okay.
Ooh, nice.
And
Wait,
I predicted a 2
Eric.
for you, so
Yeah,
Yes,
you
so
yeah.
liked
I
it
think I
more
like
than
this
my
more than
prediction.
you thought. Like
Yeah.
this is not quite Holiday Holiday, which I think gets a bump because of like the nostalgia of that, and then
Mm.
Falling Up. This is probably the third favorite of mine that we've listened
Okay.
to. Of the five I've been on, I think.
I need to start keeping track of your ratings too. I was keeping track of Kylan's because he's been on all of them, but I need to start also keeping track of
And
yours.
also, I keep no records. So,
Well, I do. I write them all down, so I
no,
do
I
keep
know
track
that's
of
what
them.
that
I
that
just don't have them
that's
in
what
my
I'm saying.
notes.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure AJ has like his notes,
I do have my notes.
and
They're all
I
saved.
I don't at all. I mean, I'm sure I could
Yeah.
find them somewhere. Maybe they're under some of these VHS tapes or in this box of stuff. I mean, I don't keep notes.
So you gave this a 2.5.
hmm
What did you give Falling Up and All the Day Holiday? You said you liked them more. Do you remember?
Falling Up is 2.75, and Holiday Holiday I think was 3.
Okay.
Simply I think there's a bump in nostalgia there. I think I gave Kirk Franklin just a solid 2 out of 5 or 2 out of 3.
Keith,
I keep saying 2
Keith
out of 5.
Sweat.
Keith
Yeah,
Sweat.
sorry. Or, yeah, sorry, Keith Sweat, not Kirk Franklin. Sorry, Keith Sweat. Very different music.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I think I just listened to the Church Jam Sound Momentum episode. Kirk
Oh
Franklin's
yeah.
on there. So
Yeah.
anyway, and then I gave Luna Halo what I called a soft 2 that I will go ahead and officially upgrade to like a 1.
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
think in listening to everything, it
Okay.
just especially listening to All the Day Holiday, Falling Up, and My Epic of like, could they have just snagged one of them to write their lyrics, and that might have
Mm.
massively improved it.
Right.
Again, super talented musicians, and so I was thinking about this. I was like, I actually think I dislike Luna Halo more than the 1980s R&B slow jams album.
Okay. You
It's
might.
hard to once you get to a certain point and it's like, oh, I have context within all of this.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, your feelings change.
Yeah. If you're up for it, AJ, you may want to listen to the ones that you've missed and send me a rating on those at some point. So
Yeah,
we'll
send me
have.
those. Text me
Okay.
those. I don't remember. I think it's only been 2 that maybe I've missed.
Yeah. And I know Odd Eye Circle,
And Evans
and Evans
Blue.
Blue. Yeah.
Evans
Okay.
Blue.
Oh, yeah. I think I already know how I'll rate that one.
Okay. All right, Kylan, what are your final thoughts and final rating? I predicted 3.75 for you.
Yeah, guess what? It's a 4
Okay.
out of 5.
Ooh.
All right.
No, see, I think Eric gave it like downgraded our actual ratings. He has other ones, and just like to mess with us a little bit, knowing like,
Right, yeah,
I
yeah.
get them
No,
right.
yeah,
They're going to
yeah.
change it.
This is like a psychological test.
Exactly, yeah.
He's trying to get us to rate higher because he
Exactly.
knows that both of us are like, you can't tell me what to do. No, I like this more.
I was trying to rate conservatively just so I
Uh-huh.
don't say like you're going to give it a 4.95
Right, and then
you
we're
really
like,
give
oh,
it a
this is
2.
a 1.5. This is the
Yeah.
worst thing I've ever listened to.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, man, I loved this. Yeah, once I kind of locked into the thing I talked about earlier, like engaging with this album in 2 different ways. Um, yeah, it's almost got like a cinematic quality to it. Like it almost feels like a movie score in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Similar to Falling Up, I think, in that regard.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people who love Late Falling Up that I've told about this album also love this album.
That makes
Yeah.
complete sense.
realized, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. What about you, man? Where are you at now?
It's a 5-star for me. When I average out all my things, I have other little things other than songs that I do. It comes to a 9.636, which anything 9.6 or over is a 5-star for me. So it's
Wait,
5 stars.
9.636?
Yes, I got to take it
That's
out
so specific.
three decimals to
Oh my
to
God.
to differentiate between.
One of these nights, I'm just going to start like listing the numbers to pi on one of the songs, right? Like or
Yeah.
albums, and just keep going and see how long until you guys are like, stop, this is no longer funny.
So in all I've gotten tired of redoing my rankings all the time just based on how I feel. So I really like adjusting the rating every time I listen to it. So I can see where this fits against other things. Really
Right.
just OCD things, I think. But
Yeah.
which for anybody listening, I'm actually diagnosed OCD. I'm not saying that like
Yeah,
to
so when
make
we
light
say
of
about
that.
ADHD, we
Yeah. No,
genuinely have
it's the same thing.
ADHD.
Yes.
Yeah, like
Right.
Yes.
we're not
None,
casually throwing those terms
none of
around.
the acronyms that we're throwing around
Yeah.
are being thrown around flippantly.
Right.
We
um so yeah, a 5-star for me.
Okay.
Kylan, I like to mention your other ratings just so you
Yes,
can.
please. Please tell me.
Okay, so you gave Keith Sweat a 4 and you gave My Epic a 4. Would you prefer one of the other? Do you think
Yeah,
that's about right?
I would put my epic at a 4.23567 421.
We'll go with a 4.25,
Okay. Yeah, I
which is
love
the
that.
same thing you rated on iCircle. So
I
do
stand
you
by it.
feel
I
okay?
stand by it
Okay, cool.
for
All
now.
right. We'll revisit all this at the end.
Please, yes. No, that should be a whole episode where you just confront me with all of my ratings and I
Oh,
have to
I will.
justify.
Yeah, that's why I want to get all
Wait,
AJ's too. We're gonna get a solid like a top 10 list
Okay,
for
all
you all
right,
of
all right.
of my favorites.
Because I'm gonna
uh
come back and be like, wait, I gave it what?
I've never
yeah.
listened to that album in my life. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, I have no idea. Wait, we listen to Keith Sweat? Really? On this show?
Um yeah, I want to give a shout out to WoW tier patron Tim
Yeah,
Rogers, who I hung out with tonight. Always good to hang out with
sweet.
Tim.
Tim.
Um yeah. Um do we want to pick next week's album while we're here? There's
Of
one I'm kind of
course.
having the urge to go with if you
All
all
right,
are up
let's do it.
for
Whatever it
uh
is.
All Star United self-titled album.
Oh, I can rate that already. It's a smash hit.
Yeah.
I
You
don't know a single All Star United song.
Oh
okay.
man, I just made a joke that you're gonna future you's
Yeah.
gonna get.
This
Okay. All right.
this will be this I think this will be interesting. You know the
Okay.
album, right, AJ?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's CCM's Blur.
Yeah. Basically. Yeah. So we'll do that one
Woohoo.
next. Uh Kylan, would you like to plug your podcast and whatever else?
No, not at all.
All right. Don't listen to Church Jams now
No,
or
please don't. Please don't.
In
Or in
Defense of
defense of Kesha.
Kesha.
No, please don't.
um it's kind of like the Luna group where when you play their songs on
Right.
Spotify it
Please do
says
not
please
stream.
do not
Yeah,
listen
yeah.
to this.
Yeah. No, don't do that. Keep this this version of me in your mind and in your eyes and in your ears.
AJ, what would you like to plug?
At this point, as always, Jesus and Joe Strummer, and then also book 2, which is short stories for people with short attention spans. That will
Yeah.
be out in November.
Sweet.
Looking forward to that.
Oh, I do have one more plug though.
Okay.
If you have not purchased Jesus and Joe Strummer, please go do that. You can get it from Amazon.com. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you get it with the app. You can also get it from Bookshop.com. So if you want to support the independent guys making independent art, you
Pitches my
should
book
get it
better
from
than
there.
me.
This is why I'm the producer, man.
You're good at your job. All right. So join us next week for All Star United. And thanks for listening. Please, if you liked it, click the thumbs up thingy. Yep. that was good.
I know. I'm gonna make a graphic that goes there too.
Also, don't forget to hit subscribe. I don't think a lot of people actually like pay attention to their subscriptions, but it will make it more likely for our videos to show up in your feed, and also help us get to a point where the channel can get monetized, which would be nice. So please do those things for us if you enjoy watching our show, and we'll see you next time. Amy Grant.
There it is. Yeah.